The winter wind cut through the small town like a knife, rattling windows and sending loose papers skittering across the icy streets. Emily pulled her thin coat tighter around her shoulders, wishing it could block out more of the cold. At just 16, she had learned far too early what it meant to go without warm clothes, without enough food, without parents who could carry the weight of life's burdens. Her mother had passed when Emily was barely 12, and her father, heartbroken and ill, struggled to work odd jobs just to keep the lights on. On her way back from the small grocery store, clutching a bag with only a loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter, stretched from her last crumpled dollars, Emily stopped at the corner. There, trying to step off the curb, was an elderly man. His cane trembled in his hand, and his body swayed as cars whooshed past, their drivers impatient to get home. The man's frail frame looked as though a strong gust might knock him to the ground. Emily didn't think twice. She dropped her bag of groceries on the sidewalk and hurried over. "Sir," she said softly, "may I help you cross?" The man lifted his cloudy blue eyes to hers, surprised, then nodded. "If you wouldn't mind, dear. These old legs don't move like they used to." With her arm steadying him, Emily led him carefully across, shielding him from the rush of the traffic with her own body. They walked slow, step by step, until at last they reached the opposite side. "Thank you, child," the man said, his voice warm despite its weakness. Not many would stop in this cold. Emily smiled faintly, brushing hair from her face. "My mama always told me, helping someone doesn't cost a thing." The man studied her, as though her words had carried more weight than she realized. "Bless you," he whispered, before shuffling off down the quiet street. Emily picked up her bag and thought nothing more of it. To her, kindness wasn't a grand gesture, it was just the right thing to do. The next morning, Emily woke to a knock at her family's small wooden door. Her father, weary from another restless night, opened it, and froze. On their doorstep stood the old man from the street, but today he wasn't alone. Behind him waited a polished black truck, and in it sat two men in clean suits. "Good morning," the old man greeted. His voice was steady, commanding respect in a way Emily hadn't noticed before. "I came to see the young lady who helped me yesterday." Emily stepped forward, a little nervous. "Oh, it was nothing, sir. I just made sure you crossed safely." The old man chuckled, shaking his head. "Nothing? It was everything. You see, most people in this town know me as Henry Whitaker. Perhaps you've heard the name." Emily blinked. Everyone in town had heard of him, the richest farmer in 3 counties, the man whose land stretched farther than the eye could see. But she had only ever known his name from whispers, never imagining she had spoken to him face to face. "I have more than I could ever spend in this lifetime," Mr. Whitaker continued, his eyes softening, "but yesterday, in my hour of need, it wasn't money I needed. It was kindness. And you gave it freely." Emily's father stepped forward nervously. "Sir, we don't want any trouble." "Trouble?" Mr. Whitaker interrupted gently. "On the contrary. I came to bring blessings." That very afternoon, trucks arrived at Emily's home. Not with money thrown carelessly, but with thoughtful gifts, warm clothes, bags of food, new furniture, and a heater to fight the bitter cold. But the greatest gift came when Mr. Whitaker offered Emily a scholarship to the local high school and later, to college. "You have a good heart," he told her. "And this world needs more people like you to rise, to lead, to inspire. Consider this an investment, not in charity, but in your future." Emily's eyes brimmed with tears. She hadn't expected anything in return. Helping him had been so simple, so natural. But now, that small act had turned into something life-changing. Years later, Emily stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony of the town's new community center, a project she had spearheaded after finishing her degree in social work. The crowd clapped as she spoke, her voice strong and steady. "Kindness," she said, "is the seed of change. You never know how one small act might grow into something bigger than yourself. I was just a girl helping an old man cross the street. I had no idea he would open doors to a future I never dreamed possible. But I learned something: when you give from your heart, the world finds a way to give back. And in the front row, Henry Whitaker, now well into his 90s, smiled proudly. Because he knew the richest harvest wasn't the crops on his fields, but the kindness passed from one heart to another.